Jonathan Pollard, employment attorney, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm going to talk today about wrongful termination. Okay, first of all, we need to become clear about what wrongful termination means. Every week, my office probably gets, 200, 300 inquiries from people who say, I was wrongfully terminated, I want to hire a lawyer, I want to sue. And the reality is that 80 to 90% of these people have absolutely no case, and they have no understanding of what the term wrongful termination means from a legal standpoint. If you take anything away from this discussion, take away the following. America has a legal system. It does not have a justice system. References to the American legal system as a justice system is basically people using the lexicon, using linguistics, right, by calling it a justice system to inherently build in a certain amount of faith into that system, right? The average person says, well, that's not fair. And, I thought there was justice. There's not justice, okay? Occasionally, just as a pure result of odds and chance, you get justice. Sometimes in a miraculous case, you get justice. But 9 times out of 10, you get the legal system's outcome, right? Which in most instances has nothing to do with justice. And so when we apply that to the employment context, you start to understand just because you think something is unfair doesn't mean it's unlawful. And to go a step further, laws protect rights. Laws do not protect feelings. And in America today, 2022, we're on a slippery slope towards laws protecting feelings. And that's a non-starter from a public policy standpoint. But back to the lecture at hand, your rights in the workplace are not the same thing as your feelings. So 80 or 90% of the time when somebody says, I was wrongful terminated, I have a hostile work environment, I want to sue, I've been bullied at work, 80 to 90% of the time, what these people are really complaining about is they think something is unfair, or they don't like something, or somebody was a jerk or a jerk towards them. And there is no law against dickish behavior. There is no law against people being jerks. There is no law against companies running their businesses in a way that you don't like, because it's their business and it's not yours, right? So the vast majority of people who have various workplace grievances, that's what they're complaining about, and none of that is actionable. Wrongful termination means termination in a manner that violates an established law or public policy, right? You with me? So somebody was a jerk to you, doesn't violate an established law or public policy. You don't like how people are treating you, doesn't violate a law or established public policy. People don't give your input very much weight, doesn't violate a law or established public policy. You see what we're going towards, right? All of a sudden, we eliminate about 80% of the noise, and now we can focus on what wrongful termination really means. So what are we looking for, okay? We're looking for, number one, big category, discrimination, right? Termination of an employee based on their status in a protected classification, right? We're looking at termination based on something like race, age, gender, religion, national origin, color of their skin, etc., right? Discriminatory actions, either termination or reduction in salary, assignment to a less favorable position, demotion, any sort of adverse employment action that is tied to some type of discrimination. That's a big one. Another sort of second bucket, whistleblowing. So an employee refuses to participate in illegal conduct, and they're terminated as a result of that, all right? That's illegal. That's wrongful termination. A third big bucket that people sometimes overlook, retaliation. Somebody complains about discrimination and they're fired as a result of complaining about it, even if the underlying discrimination wasn't truly actionable, right? Meaning it didn't rise to the level of being illegal. Say Joe thinks he was discriminated against and he goes to the powers that be and says, hey, I think I'm being discriminated against based on my race. And there was no illegal discrimination going on, but he had some grievances and some people looked at him sideways and he thought it was racism. He complains about it and he gets fired. That's illegal retaliation because he was fired for complaining about discrimination, even if the underlying discrimination didn't exist. So that's not an exhaustive list, but these are the types of situations we're talking about: discrimination, whistleblowing, retaliation. That's wrongful termination. Okay. Another big bucket that I see that you actually would put in the first bucket of discrimination: somebody who is repeatedly sexually harassed and even sexually assaulted at work, and they complain about a supervisor or a manager creeping on them, and they get fired as a result of that. That's also discrimination and retaliation. But that's really what we're looking for from a standpoint of wrongful termination. It's not just, I don't feel like my input's being valued, or I feel like, Mike's being a jerk to me, or so-and-so is bullying me. We see the word bullying thrown around quite a bit. And my take on that is, is there workplace bullying? Yeah, but it's not a good look to be a grown-ass adult and, complaining about workplace bullying. The reality is, once you get to a certain point in your life, you have to make the choice. And you make the choice of whether or not you're going to tolerate being mistreated at work, even if it doesn't rise to the level of illegal discrimination. You make the choice of whether or not you're going to tolerate that, or whether or not you're going to go seek out something else and do something different. And a lot of complaints that I hear from folks, they're complaints that fall in that gap where, no, it's not illegal. It's not wrongful termination. It's not illegal discrimination. It's not illegal retaliation. It's just that they work with people who are jerks and shitty human beings. And ultimately, it's up to you to decide whether or not you keep going down that road. It's up to you to decide whether or not you work with jerks and you work with people who mistreat you and mistreat other human beings. Because at the end of the day, that's not going to lead anywhere good. A lot of folks will be a little confused and they say, oh, Pollard, but you represent employees in these types of cases. Absolutely, I represent employees in these types of cases. But I represent employees where they have valid legal claims for discrimination, whistleblowing, retaliation, sexual harassment, sexual assault. I represent employees where they have true claims of violations of their legal rights. I don't represent employees in the thousands, if not millions of cases where their grievance is that somebody at work is a jerk. Now, I grew up working class and sometimes poor, so I'm not without empathy or sympathy to people who need their job. But I see so many folks who are making, 80, 90, 100, 120, 140, $150,000. They're making good money and they're staying in jobs like this where they're working with jerks and they're miserable and they say, oh, I want to do something, I want to sue. And the answer there is no. You need to make a decision about what's best for you and what's best for your life. And you're not going to just use the legal system to play bully ball and get a big company to have a no jerks policy, right? There are going to be jerks in any big organization. It's up to you whether or not you decide to tolerate that or whether or not you decide to leave, pursue something else, and go a different direction, because you are ultimately responsible and accountable for your happiness and your well-being. Don't let society fool you. Don't let everybody tell you you're a victim. There are people who truly are victims, and then there are a whole lot of people who want to be victims and feel like being a victim and getting a victim card is going to give them some currency, and let them get some stuff done and get what they want. And unfortunately, that's not really how it is at the end of the day. So probably the strangest discussion you'll ever hear by a plaintiff side employment lawyer. 80% to 90% of workplace grievances are BS and people complaining about other folks in the office treating them like crap. Being a jerk is not unlawful, people. Wrongful termination is termination in violation of established rights as in laws, statutes, or violations of established public policy. Jonathan Pollard, employment attorney, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Have a good one.